Hardship is not something we seek, but when it comes, it separates the sincere from the pretenders. Imagine being called to march across 600 kilometers of burning desert, in the peak of Arabian summer with little food, scarce water, and almost no mounts to ride. Imagine leaving behind the comfort of your family, your freshly harvested dates, your shade, and your home. This was the test faced by the Muslims during the expedition of Tabuk. A journey so difficult that Allah himself named that year Aam al Usrah, the year of hardship. This wasn't just a test of swords and shields. It was a test of patience, wealth, sincerity, and trust in Allah. The story of Tabuk shows us that the greatest victories are not always measured by battles won, but by sacrifices made. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. How are you doing today? Welcome to the Path of Peace. Story topic introduction. The Battle of Tabuk was the last expedition personally led by the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. It happened in the 9th year after Hijrah, a time when Islam had spread across most of the Arabian Peninsula. The Muslims were stronger than ever before, yet they were still tested with one of the harshest campaigns of their history. Unlike Badr, Uhud, or Khandak, the story of Tabuk is not about direct confrontation with enemy armies. Instead, it is about testing the faith of the believers, exposing the hypocrites and showing that obedience to Allah requires sacrifice even when everything in life seems to pull you back. The context. Threat from the Romans. By this time, Islam was no longer a small movement in Madinah. It had become a rising power, respected and feared. Word reached Madinah that the Byzantine Empire, the Romans, the greatest superpower of the world, was preparing a huge army in Syria to march against the Muslims. This was no small threat. The Byzantines had already clashed with Muslims earlier in the Battle of Mu'tah, where 3 Muslim commanders, Zayd ibn Haritha, may Allah be pleased with him, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with him, and Abdullah ibn Rawaha, may Allah be pleased with him, were martyred. Now, another confrontation seemed inevitable. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, could not wait passively. He knew that if the Muslims did not march forward, the Romans might invade Medina itself. So, he called for preparation for a long expedition towards Tabuk, near the Syrian border. The hardship of preparation. This call came at a very challenging time. It was the peak of Arabian summer when the sun scorched like fire. It was also the season when dates were ripe for harvest, the main food and wealth of Madinah. Farmers naturally wanted to stay home and enjoy their crops. On top of this, the journey to Tabuk was long and dangerous, nearly 600 kilometers through deserts with little water. The companions were asked to prepare with whatever resources they had. This campaign became known as Year al Usrah, the Army of Hardship, the generosity of the companions. The response of the believers was inspiring. Those who had wealth gave it freely. Uthman ibn Affan, may Allah be pleased with him, gave an extraordinary contribution. Narrations mention he equipped 300 camels, provided 200 ounces of gold, and gave other supplies in such abundance that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, declared, "Nothing will harm Uthman after today, whatever he does." Tirmidhi. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, may Allah be pleased with him, brought all of his wealth, leaving nothing behind for his family except faith in Allah. When asked by the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, "What did you leave for your family?" Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, replied, "I left for them Allah and his messenger." Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, always competing in goodness, brought half of everything he owned, thinking this time he could surpass Abu Bakr. But when he saw Abu Bakr had given all, he realized he could never outdo him in sacrifice. Even the poorer companions gave. One man came with a handful of dates, saying, "This is all I own, but I give it for the sake of Allah." The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, accepted it with love, teaching us that sincerity matters more than the amount. Allah describes this in the Quran. Those who give charity, men and women, and lend to Allah a goodly loan, it will be multiplied for them, and they will have a noble reward. Surah Hadid 57-18, the hypocrites and their excuses. While the true believers gave their wealth and energy, the hypocrites in Madinah began spreading doubts. They mocked the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, saying, "Don't march in the heat." Allah exposed them in the Quran. Those who stayed behind rejoiced in their staying behind after the departure of the Messenger of Allah, and they hated to strive with their wealth and their lives in the cause of Allah. They said, "Do not go forth in the heat." Say, the fire of hell is more intense in heat if only they understood. Surah At-Tawbah 9-81. They built excuses one after another. We are too weak, our wealth is tied up, our homes need us. Their hearts were unwilling, even though their tongues pretended loyalty. This expedition exposed them completely. The weeping companions who couldn't join. Not everyone who stayed behind was a hypocrite. Some were sincere believers, but simply too poor. They had no mounts, no supplies, and nothing to contribute. They came to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, begging to be allowed to join. But the Prophet had no extra mounts to give them. They turned back with tears streaming down their faces. Allah honored them in the Quran. There is no blame upon those who, when they came to you for mounts to ride upon, and you said, "I can find nothing for you to ride upon," they turned back with their eyes overflowing with tears out of grief that they could not find something to spend. Surah At-Tawbah 9-92. These were men of sincerity. They wanted nothing more than to sacrifice for Allah, but poverty held them back. Yet Allah counted their intentions as if they had gone. The difficult march. The Muslim army of 30,000 set out. This was the largest army the Prophet had ever led, but it was also the hardest. Provisions were so scarce that some companions had to share a single date among several men, each sucking it for energy before passing it on. At times, they slaughtered camels just to drink the water stored in their stomachs. Thirst was unbearable, and hunger was constant. But their faith carried them forward. Each step was a declaration of loyalty to Allah. Each hardship became a badge of honor. At Tabuk, no battle but a victory. When they finally reached Tabuk, they found no Roman army waiting. The Byzantines had withdrawn, perhaps out of fear or by the will of Allah. There was no battle. Yet this campaign was not in vain. The Muslims signed treaties with surrounding tribes, secured their northern border, and demonstrated to the world that they were strong enough to march across deserts to face the greatest empire of the time. For the hypocrites, it was humiliation. Their excuses were exposed, their faithlessness revealed. For the believers, it was a spiritual triumph. They proved that true strength lies not in numbers, but in patience, sacrifice, and trust in Allah. The return and the lessons. On the return to Madinah, some companions who had stayed behind without excuse came forward to confess. Among them were 3 sincere believers, Ka'b ibn Malik, Murara ibn Rabi, and Hilal ibn Umayyah. May Allah be pleased with them. They admitted their mistake and sought forgiveness. The Prophet commanded the community to boycott them for 50 days until Allah revealed their forgiveness in Surah At-Tawbah 9-118. This shows us that honesty, even in failure, is better than hypocrisy. Conclusion. The Battle of Tabuk was not about swords clashing or shields breaking. It was about the clash between sincerity and hypocrisy, between sacrifice and selfishness, between trust in Allah and excuses of the weak-hearted. It teaches us that obedience to Allah often requires leaving comfort behind. That wealth is not truly ours until we spend it for Allah. That tears shed in longing to obey Allah are more valuable than mountains of gold given insincerely. When life tests us with hardship, whether it is poverty, illness, or sacrifice, remember the companions of Tabuk. Remember Abu Bakr's complete trust, Uthman's unmatched generosity, the poor companion's tears, and the hypocrite's shame. Ask yourself, when my test comes, will I be among those who sacrifice or those who make excuses? Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to stay updated with more Islamic content. Like, share, and comment to support our work and spread the message.